The first sign that someone was trying to sell my house was a woman standing in my kitchen, measuring the distance between the island and the back door. I had never seen her before. Neither had I invited her inside. I stopped in the hallway with my grocery bag still in one hand. "Can I help you?" She turned quickly. "Oh, you must be Mr. Cole." That bothered me immediately. She knew my name. I didn't know hers. Behind her, a younger couple stood near the patio doors, looking out at my backyard. The man was holding a printed property sheet. My property sheet. My address was printed across the top. Underneath it, for sale, $1,185,000. I put the grocery bag down. "Everybody out." The woman blinked. "I'm sorry?" "This house is not for sale." The couple looked at each other. The woman holding the tape measure slowly lowered it. "I think there's been some misunderstanding." "There has." I pointed toward the front door. "You're standing inside my house." Nobody argued after that. Within 2 minutes, all three were outside. But before the couple left, the man handed me the sheet. "You may want to call the listing agent." I looked at the bottom. "Peter Lawson, Lawson Residential Group." There was a phone number beneath his name, and a photograph. A confident man in his early 50s wearing a gray suit. I had never met him. Yet apparently, he was selling my house. I locked the front door, then the back. Then I checked the garage. Nothing was missing. No broken windows, no damaged locks. That made the situation worse, because whoever had arranged the showing had gotten people inside without forcing anything. I called the number on the sheet. A woman answered. "Lawson Residential Group. I need to speak with Peter Lawson." "May I ask who's calling?" "Martin Cole." There was a pause, a small one, but I heard it. "Mr. Cole." Her voice changed. "I'll see if he's available." That pause told me my name meant something in that office. 30 seconds later, a man came on the line. "Mr. Cole." He sounded calm, professional, almost too calm. "Peter Lawson?" "Yes." "You have my house listed for sale." Silence. Then, "I think we should speak in person." "No. I think you should explain why strangers were inside my kitchen. I understand why you're upset." "You don't." Another pause. "I can be there in 20 minutes. Bring every document you have." He hesitated. "I can bring what I'm permitted to show you." That was the first moment I decided I didn't trust him. I called my son next. Evan lived about 15 minutes away. He was 41, worked in commercial insurance, and had spent most of the previous year helping me deal with things I had ignored after my wife died. Taxes, repairs, insurance renewals, the boring things that pile up when two people used to handle a house, and suddenly only one does. He answered immediately. "I'm Dad. Can you come over?" "What happened?" "My house is apparently for sale." There was complete silence. Then, "What?" "I came home and found buyers inside." "Are you serious?" "Yes." "Who listed it?" "A realtor named Peter Lawson." "I'm coming." He hung up before I could say anything else. That was Evan. Practical. Fast. He didn't waste time asking questions he could ask in person. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the driveway. Almost at the same moment, a black Lexus stopped at the curb. The man who stepped out matched the photograph on the listing sheet. Peter Lawson. Evan got out of his truck first. "You Lawson?" "Yes." "I'm his son." Peter looked toward me, then back at Evan. Something changed in his face. Not fear. Recognition, maybe. It lasted less than a second. Then it was gone. I noticed it. So did Evan. "What was that?" my son asked. Peter adjusted the folder under his arm. "What was what?" "You looked like you knew me." "I don't believe we've met." Evan stared at him for another second, then stepped aside. "Good. Let's keep it that way. I almost told him to calm down, but I didn't. I wanted Peter uncomfortable. Uncomfortable people sometimes answer faster. We sat at my dining room table. Peter placed a folder in front of him. I sat across from him. Evan took the chair beside me. Peter opened the folder but kept one hand resting over the first page. I want to be clear about something before we start. Go ahead. I did not break into your home. Then how did people get inside? A temporary access code was provided. I stared at him. Provided by whom? I'm not able to discuss my client without authorization. Evan leaned forward. Your client is trying to sell my father's house. Peter looked at him calmly. My client represented that they had authority to do so. Represented how? With documents. I held out my hand. Show me. He didn't move. I can't give you the full file. Then show me enough. Peter studied me for a few seconds. Finally, he removed one page and slid it across the table. It was not a deed. It was a signed authorization allowing the property to be photographed, shown, and marketed. My address was correct. My full name appeared near the top, but the signature at the bottom was not mine. I looked at it twice, then a third time. Evan leaned closer. That's not your signature. No. Peter watched both of us carefully. I was told it was. By your client? Yes. Who you still won't name. He said nothing. That silence made him look guiltier than any answer could have. I pushed the page back. Cancel the listing. I already suspended it. That surprised me. When? The moment my office told me you'd called. Evan looked at him. So you knew something was wrong. Peter's expression stayed neutral. I knew there was a dispute. That's not the same thing. No, it isn't. Peter closed the folder. I recommend you check your ownership records. I frowned. My ownership records? The deed. I know who owns my house. I'm sure you do. Then why are you telling me to check? For the first time since he arrived, Peter looked uncomfortable. He stood. Because the person who hired me seemed very confident that the property could be sold. Evan stood too. And you believed them? Peter looked toward the front door. I believed the paperwork I was given. Then he turned back to me. But if I were you, Mr. Cole. He paused. I'd find the original deed before I made another phone call. He left without explaining why. Evan watched his car disappear down the street. That guy knows more than he's saying. I looked at the forged signature still lying on my dining room table. Yes. Then I picked up my keys. Which is why I'm not calling him again. Evan frowned. Where are we going? To find out whose name is actually on my house. The original deed wasn't in the filing cabinet where it had always been. That was the first thing that truly frightened me. For 23 years, every important document had stayed in the same locked drawer in my study. The mortgage papers, insurance policies, my wife's will, the survey from when we bought the property, everything. The drawer was still locked. Nothing else was missing. Only the deed. I checked the folder twice, then a third time. I wasn't looking anymore. I was hoping. There is a difference. Evan stood quietly behind me. You think someone took it? I don't know. When did you last see it? I thought about that. I honestly can't remember. He didn't answer. Neither of us liked that response. The older you get, the more dangerous those 4 words become. I can't remember. We searched the entire house, the office, the bedroom, the safe, even old moving boxes in the basement. Nothing. After nearly an hour, I sat down at the kitchen table. My wife had always insisted every important document existed in 2 places. The original at home, a certified copy somewhere else. I suddenly remembered where. The county recorder's office. Evan was already grabbing his keys before I finished speaking. I'll drive. The recorder's office occupied an old brick building downtown. The woman behind the counter greeted us with the kind of smile people develop after answering the same questions for 20 years. How can I help you? I need a copy of the deed for my property. She asked for my address, typed for a few seconds, then frowned. What? Just a moment. She disappeared into another room. When she returned, she wasn't carrying one document. She was carrying several. She placed them carefully on the counter. Which one were you looking for? I stared at her. There should only be one. She looked confused. There have been several filings over the years. My pulse quickened. I've never changed ownership. I'm not saying ownership changed. She slid one document toward me. This one was recorded when you bought the house. Another. This one corrected the legal description of the property. Another. And this one. She stopped speaking. What? She looked back at the screen. It was filed about 6 months ago. I looked at Evan. He looked just as confused. I didn't file anything 6 months ago. The clerk hesitated. It wasn't a transfer. What was it? I'm not really supposed to interpret documents. I don't need an interpretation. I kept my voice calm. I just need to know why something was filed. She turned the page toward me. It appears someone requested an updated certified copy. Who? I'm sorry. She shook her head. I can't release that information. Outside, neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Finally, Evan broke the silence. So somebody asked for a certified copy. Apparently. Could that have helped list the house? I don't know. He looked back toward the building. What if Lawson got it? I didn't answer immediately. It made sense. Too much sense. A realtor would need documents. A certified copy sounded exactly like something a realtor would request. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became. On the drive home, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Cole? It was Peter Lawson. What now? I wanted to let you know I've canceled tomorrow's showings. So there were more? Yes. My grip tightened on the phone. How many? 4. 4 different families had been scheduled to walk through my home. Without me knowing. Without my permission. Without my signature. You've been busy. I understand why you're angry. No. I looked out the window. You really don't. There was silence. Then Peter said something unexpected. You should change every lock on your house. I frowned. Why? I think it's the safest thing to do. Did someone make extra keys? I didn't say that. Then why would I change the locks? Another pause. I simply think you should. I could hear traffic in the background. He sounded like he was driving. Mr. Lawson? Yes? If you're trying to help me, then help me. He didn't answer. Instead, he quietly said, I'll call again tomorrow. Then he hung up. I stared at the phone. Evan glanced over. What did he want? He told me to change the locks. Evan immediately nodded. We're doing that today. You think he's warning us? I think he knows something. So why won't he say it? Neither of us had an answer. By late afternoon, a locksmith had replaced every lock on the house. Front door, back door, garage, side entrance, even the small workshop behind the garden. As the locksmith packed his tools, he looked at me. You've had trouble? You could say that. He handed me the last key. Well, he smiled politely. At least nobody else has access anymore. I wanted to believe him. I really did. That evening, Evan stayed for dinner. Neither of us had much appetite. Halfway through the meal, he looked around the kitchen. You know what bothers me most? What? Whoever did this knew everything. The address, the layout, the value, the timing. I nodded. They even knew when I'd probably be out. He slowly put down his fork. That doesn't feel random. No. It feels personal. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. 7:30 at night. I wasn't expecting anyone. Evan walked to the front window. His expression changed immediately. It's him. Who? He looked back at me. Peter Lawson. I stood. What does he want now? I don't know. But Evan kept watching through the glass. He isn't alone. A second car had just pulled into my driveway, and two people carrying clipboards were getting out. I opened the front door before Peter Lawson had a chance to knock. He stood there holding the same leather folder as the day before. Behind him were two people wearing navy jackets with county identification badges clipped to their belts. Neither of them looked like police officers. Neither carried weapons, only clipboards. Peter spoke first. I know this looks bad. It looked bad yesterday. It looks worse today. One of the county employees stepped forward. Mr. Cole? Yes. My name is Diane Foster. She held up her badge. We're here because a complaint was filed concerning the ownership status of your property. I stared at her. A complaint? Yes. By who? I'm afraid I can't disclose that. I almost laughed. Nobody could disclose anything. Apparently everyone knew something except the man living in the house. Evan came to stand beside me. So what exactly are you here to do? Diane answered calmly. We're only here to verify occupancy. I'm occupying it. I can see that. Then why are you here? She glanced down at her paperwork. Because someone reported that the current occupant might not be the legal owner. The words landed harder than I expected. Not because I believed them, because someone had actually filed that claim. Someone had taken time to fill out paperwork. Someone wanted the government involved. Peter remained several feet away. He never interrupted. He never smiled. He simply watched. That irritated me. You seem awfully interested in my house. His expression didn't change. I'm interested in making sure a mistake isn't completed. What mistake? The sale. You listed it. Yes. And now you're pretending to stop it. I stopped it yesterday. His answer came so quickly that it almost sounded rehearsed. Diane finished checking a few items on her clipboard. I've confirmed you're living here. She looked at me. That concludes our visit. That's it? That's all we were authorized to verify. She handed me a business card. If anyone contacts you claiming they now own the property, she paused. Call us immediately. Has that happened before? More often than people think. She nodded politely. Then both county employees walked back toward their car. They had been at my house less than 10 minutes. Yet somehow, I felt even less secure than before they arrived. Peter remained standing near the sidewalk. I walked toward him. Evan followed. I have one question. Peter nodded. Ask. Why did you bring them here? I didn't. They arrived with you. They asked me for directions. I looked directly into his eyes. That's a remarkable coincidence. It is. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to believe whatever the facts support. I hated that answer, mostly because it sounded sincere. Evan folded his arms. My father asked you yesterday who hired you. I know. You still won't answer. I can't. So instead, you bring county employees to his house? I didn't bring them. You just happened to arrive together? Peter didn't respond. His silence was becoming infuriating. He finally opened his folder. I can show you one thing. He removed a photograph. It showed my house, taken from across the street. The flower beds had been cleaned, the grass freshly cut. The photographs were professional, high quality, exactly the kind used in expensive real estate listings. When were these taken? 3 weeks ago. I never hired anyone. I know. Then who let the photographer onto my property? Peter looked at the picture instead of me. I've been asking myself the same question. I reached for the photograph. He let me keep it. I turned it over. There was a handwritten note on the back. Ready for market. Nothing else. No signature, no initials, no company logo. Just those 3 words. Back inside, Evan placed the photograph on the kitchen counter. 3 weeks ago. He looked around the room. You were in Arizona visiting Aunt Linda, I nodded slowly. I was gone 4 days. So the house was photographed while you were out of state. That thought settled heavily over both of us. Someone had chosen those exact days. Not before. Not after. They knew the house would be empty. That evening I sat in my study looking through old family photo albums. Not because I expected to find answers, because I needed to think. This house wasn't valuable because of its price. It was valuable because nearly every memory I still had of my wife lived inside these walls. Our first Christmas, our son's graduation, summer barbecues, birthday dinners, 40 years of ordinary life. Someone had tried to turn all of that into a listing description. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, updated kitchen, move-in ready. It made me angrier than I wanted to admit. Around 9 o'clock, Evan walked into the study carrying his laptop. I found something. What? The listing is gone. I looked up. Gone? He turned the screen toward me. Yesterday, the page had shown photographs, the asking price, and a schedule for private showings. Now, there was only one sentence. Listing removed. Lawson pulled it. I guess. But look at this. He clicked another page. Cached search results. Copies of the old listing. Comments. People had already shared it online, saved it, downloaded the photos. Even though the sale had stopped, the pictures were still circulating. I rubbed my forehead. So this isn't over. No. He closed the laptop. I actually think it's just beginning. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Again. I answered. A quiet male voice spoke before I could say hello. If you want to keep your house... The caller lowered his voice even further. Stop trusting the realtor. The line went dead. I replayed the caller's words over and over. Stop trusting the realtor. That was it. No explanation, no threat, just one sentence. Then silence. I looked at Evan. He hung up? I nodded. What did he say? I repeated every word exactly as I'd heard it. Evan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked up the photograph Peter Lawson had left on the kitchen counter, the one showing my house from across the street, 3 weeks earlier. He looked from the picture to the front window, then back again. I think somebody wants us looking in the wrong direction. I frowned. You think the call was fake? I don't know. But it's convenient. For who? For whoever listed the house. Neither of us slept much that night. Around 6 the next morning, I walked outside with a cup of coffee. Everything looked normal. My maple tree, the mailbox, the porch swing my wife had insisted on buying even though we already had 2 chairs. Then I noticed tire tracks in the damp grass beside the driveway. Fresh. A vehicle had pulled halfway onto my lawn, probably sometime during the night. I crouched to look closer. The tracks stopped near the side of the house, as if someone had parked there for several minutes, watching. Evan arrived just after 7. He hadn't even taken off his jacket before I showed him the tire marks. They weren't here yesterday. He examined them carefully. No. They're fresh. He looked toward the road. Did any neighbors notice? I haven't asked. We should. Our nearest neighbor, Linda Harper, had lived across the street for nearly 18 years. If anything happened on our block, Linda usually knew before everyone else. She opened the door, still wearing gardening gloves. Martin, I need to ask you something. She smiled. Of course. Have you noticed any strange cars around my house lately? The smile disappeared. I thought you knew. Knew what? There have been people stopping by for weeks. My stomach tightened. Weeks? She nodded. I assumed you were selling. I looked at Evan. Neither of us spoke. Linda continued. Sometimes it was one car. Sometimes two. They'd sit outside for 10 or 15 minutes. Then leave. Did you recognize anyone? No. But, she hesitated. One man came several times. What did he look like? Gray suit. Dark sedan. He always carried a leather folder. Evan looked at me. Neither of us needed to say the name. Peter Lawson. On the drive home, neither of us spoke for almost 5 minutes. Finally, Evan broke the silence. That's enough for me. What do you mean? He was watching the house before the listing. I kept my eyes on the road. It certainly sounds that way. He lied. Maybe. He said he was trying to stop the sale. He also admitted he had photographs. Evan leaned back. I don't buy it. Neither did I. Not anymore. Back home, I spread everything across the dining room table. The forged authorization, the listing sheet, the photograph, the business card, the anonymous phone number, the county paperwork. Every piece pointed toward one man, Peter Lawson. Nothing pointed anywhere else. That bothered me. Real life rarely points in only one direction. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID displayed Peter Lawson's office. I let it ring twice before answering. What? I need to speak with you. We've already done that. Not like this. I'm done listening. You shouldn't be. I think I should. His voice remained calm. Mr. Cole. I've located something. What? A document. What document? I can't explain it over the phone. I laughed. There it is again. What? I can't explain. I can't tell you. I can't show you. You've had 3 chances. I'm not giving you a 4th. I ended the call. Evan looked up from his laptop. That was him? Yes. What did he want? Apparently he found another document. Evan shook his head. He's playing games. That's exactly what I think. He closed the laptop. Let's stop reacting to him. What do you suggest? We build our own timeline. For the next 2 hours, we wrote everything we knew on a large whiteboard in my garage. 3 weeks ago, professional photographs. 6 months ago, someone requested certified copies. Yesterday, buyers entered my house. Today, anonymous warning, county inspection, fresh tire tracks, every event fit, except one. I stared at the board. Something's missing. Evan nodded. The beginning. Exactly. Somewhere. Before the photographs, before the documents, before the realtor. Someone had made the decision to sell my home. That decision had to start with one person. We just didn't know who. At 3 that afternoon, the doorbell rang again. Neither of us moved. It rang a second time. Evan walked quietly to the front window. His face tightened. It's Lawson. Alone? He looked again. Yeah. What does he have? A large envelope. I stayed where I was. He can leave. A minute passed. Then another. Finally, I heard something slide across the hardwood floor. The mail slot. After his car drove away, Evan picked up the envelope. There was no return address. only my name written neatly across the front. Inside was a single photograph. Not of my house, of me, standing in my own backyard, taken from a distance. At the bottom, someone had written 6 words in black ink. He doesn't know who hired me. I looked at the photograph for a long time. It wasn't the picture itself that bothered me. It was where it had been taken from. Whoever held the camera had been standing somewhere beyond my back fence, close enough to recognize me, far enough away that I never noticed. Evan turned the photograph over. Nothing. No date, no note, no logo, just the image. Lawson left this? He put the envelope through the mail slot. He took this. I don't know. Evan looked at the picture again. Or he wants us to think he did. That possibility hadn't occurred to me. Until then, every new piece of evidence had pointed toward Peter Lawson. Now, for the first time, one piece almost pointed too perfectly. Evan opened his laptop. I saved the original listing yesterday. He clicked through several folders. There. The property photographs appeared one after another. Front elevation, kitchen, living room, backyard. He enlarged the backyard image. Look. I leaned closer. Near the wooden fence stood an old bird feeder. My wife had painted it blue years ago. It had been leaning slightly to the left for months. In the listing photo, it leaned left. In the anonymous photograph, it leaned right. I frowned. How? Evan clicked back and forth between the two images. The listing photos were taken before somebody straightened it. I remembered. A week earlier, I had fixed the post after a storm. So these pictures weren't taken on the same day. No. They're at least a week apart. Which meant someone had continued watching my house, even after the listing photographs were finished. Around noon, I drove to Lawson Residential Group, alone. I hadn't told Evan. If Peter was behind everything, I wanted to see his reaction before anyone else influenced the conversation. The receptionist recognized me immediately. Mr. Cole, I need to speak with Peter. I'm sorry. He's not in the office. When will he be back? I don't know. You don't know? She shook her head. He canceled every appointment this morning. That surprised me. Did he say why? No. Can you call him? She hesitated. I already tried. No answer. As I turned to leave, something on the reception desk caught my eye. A stack of glossy brochures, the same design as my listing. I picked one up. Different house, different family, different neighborhood. Everything looked ordinary. Then I noticed a slogan printed across the bottom. Built on trust since 1998. I almost laughed. Trust. That was becoming the most expensive word in my life. When I arrived home, Evan's truck was already in the driveway. He was standing beside my mailbox. You left without telling me. I needed answers. Did you get any? No. I did. That caught my attention. What happened? He held up a small white envelope. It was inside your mailbox. There was no stamp. Someone had placed it there by hand. Inside, one sheet of paper, a printed email. No names, no signatures. Only one sentence had been highlighted. The owner will never know until closing day. My stomach tightened. Evan looked at me. This wasn't about tricking buyers. No. It was about tricking you. That afternoon, we drove to the title company, whose name appeared on the original listing. A middle-aged employee met us in a conference room. She listened carefully while I explained everything. Then she checked her computer. After several minutes, she looked back at us. I'm sorry. What? We never opened a file. I frowned. But your company was listed. Yes. She turned the monitor slightly. Our name was used. But we were never hired. Evan leaned forward. So whoever prepared the listing used our company without permission. She nodded. My mind immediately returned to one person, Peter Lawson. Who else could have done that? On the drive home, neither of us said much. The evidence kept growing. Every road led back to him. The forged authorization, the photographs, the listing, the fake title company reference, the anonymous calls, the envelope, the surveillance photo. Even if Peter wasn't acting alone, he had to be involved. I couldn't imagine another explanation. That evening, just before sunset, I stood on the back patio looking across the yard. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I suddenly noticed movement beyond the fence. Someone walking away through the narrow trail behind the property. Only a silhouette. Too far away to recognize. Hey! The figure didn't stop. I climbed through the side gate and started after him. By the time I reached the trail, he was gone. But something lay on the ground where he had been standing. A brown envelope, sealed. My name written across the front. Inside, only one page. A copy of the listing agreement. For the first time, the section labeled seller was completely visible. The signature line had been uncovered. I stared at it. It wasn't my signature. It wasn't even close. But before I could study it any longer, Evan caught up behind me. What is it? I looked back at the paper. The signature was unfamiliar. Completely unfamiliar. Which made only one question matter now. If it wasn't mine, whose name had been written there? I looked at the signature again. It wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone I recognized. No first name, just a signature. Fast, confident, almost impossible to read. Evan took the paper from my hands. Do you know who this is? No. Not even a guess? I shook my head. For the first time since this nightmare had started, I had reached the end of every theory I had. The next morning my phone rang at exactly 8:14. Peter Lawson. I almost ignored it. Almost. Instead, I answered. What? His voice sounded different. Tired. I need to see you. I've heard that before. This time you'll want to. I doubt it. There was a long silence. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. I've been released from my confidentiality agreement. I frowned. What does that mean? It means, he took a slow breath. I can finally tell you who hired me. Every muscle in my body tightened. When? Today. Where? My office. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Evan insisted on driving. Neither of us spoke much. For nearly a week we had been building one conclusion after another. Every road had led to Peter Lawson. Now. He claimed he could explain everything. Neither of us believed him. Peter was waiting alone in the conference room. No receptionist, no assistant, just him. The leather folder sat on the table, exactly where it had been the first day. As we walked in, he stood. I appreciate you coming. I almost didn't. I know. He looked at me, and I wouldn't have blamed you. I remained standing. Start talking. Peter opened the folder. Instead of contracts, he placed a spiral notebook on the table. My personal notes. I frowned. You keep notes? On every listing. He opened to the first page. The day I was contacted. A date. Almost 2 months earlier. Then another page. The first meeting. Another date. Then another. The first time I refused. I looked up. You refused? 3 times. Neither Evan nor I spoke. Peter continued. The person who contacted me wanted the house listed immediately. You could have said no. I did. Why? Because I couldn't verify ownership. That stopped me. You knew something was wrong? I suspected something was wrong. He slid another page toward me. I requested proof. What kind? A certified deed. I remembered the county clerk. The certified copy requested 6 months earlier. Peter nodded before I even asked. That's why the copy was requested. You requested it? Yes. I wanted to confirm ownership before accepting the listing. My mind was racing. Nothing fit anymore. If you refused, why did the listing appear? Because eventually, he stopped. I received documents that appeared legitimate. You believed them. I believed them long enough to begin marketing. What changed? He looked directly at me. You called my office. Peter reached into the folder one last time. This time he removed a sealed envelope. I've been waiting to give you this. I didn't move. What is it? The agency agreement. I've already seen it. No. He gently pushed it across the table. You've seen a copy. This is the original. I slowly opened it. Every page carried real signatures, initials, dates. The final page contained the signature I'd found the night before. Beneath it, a printed name. I stared at it, read it again. Then a third time. My vision blurred. No. The room became completely silent. Evan looked at me. What? I couldn't answer. I simply turned the document toward him. His face lost all color. The printed name beneath the signature read, Evan Cole, my own son. No. He whispered it before anyone else spoke. No. He grabbed the contract. This isn't possible. Peter remained calm. I wish it weren't. Evan looked at him with genuine disbelief. I never signed this. I know. You know. Peter nodded. That's why I delayed the sale. Neither of us understood. Peter pointed to the signature. I knew the signature didn't match your driver's license. Evan stared at him. What? When your client signs a listing agreement, we verify identity. He opened another folder. I requested additional identification. You never provided it. Evan looked completely lost. I couldn't. Because I never hired you. Peter slowly nodded. Exactly. The room fell silent again. I looked from Peter to my son, then back again. Nothing made sense anymore. If Evan didn't hire you, I asked quietly, why is his name on the contract? Peter took one long breath. Because... He reached into the folder one final time. This time he placed a flash drive on the table. I hired a forensic document examiner after you called me. He looked directly at me. And yesterday, I received the surveillance footage from my office. I felt my heartbeat quicken. Peter didn't look at the screen. He looked at me. The man who signed this contract, he paused, wasn't pretending to be your son. Another pause. He was your son. I turned slowly toward Evan. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring at the table. His shoulders had dropped. His breathing had changed. The silence lasted nearly 30 seconds. Finally, without lifting his head, he whispered 5 words that changed everything. I never wanted you to know. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound in the room came from the air conditioner humming above us. I looked at my son. He still hadn't raised his head. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. Why? He closed his eyes. It started almost a year ago. He spoke slowly. Not because he was choosing his words, because he had run out of excuses. I invested in a friend's company. I said nothing. It failed. How much? He swallowed. Everything I had. I waited. There was more. Go on. I borrowed money. From the bank? He shook his head. No. The room felt colder. Private lenders. I understood immediately. Those weren't people who sent reminder letters. Those were people who expected payment. On time. Every time. I thought I could fix it. His voice barely carried across the table. I kept borrowing to cover the previous loans. How much? He answered without looking at me. $900,000. I couldn't believe what I had heard. Not because of the amount, because I had never seen a single sign. He still came for Sunday dinners, still smiled, still asked how I was doing, all while carrying a secret that could destroy both our lives. I looked at Peter. You knew about the debt? He nodded once. Not at first. When did you find out? The day I refused to move forward. He opened his notebook again. Your son finally admitted why he needed the sale. I turned back to Evan. You told him. I had to. He said the lenders were threatening him. Peter spoke quietly. They wanted cash. They didn't want another promise. I sat back in my chair. So you decided to sell my house? I told myself. Evan finally looked at me. That I'd buy it back. I stared at him. I really believed I could. When? After I got back on my feet. You were gambling with the only home your mother and I ever owned. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't cry. I know. No. I shook my head. You know now. I turned toward Peter. There is still one thing I don't understand. He nodded. I know. Why didn't you tell me the first day? I legally couldn't. And after that, I was trying to stop the sale without violating my client's privacy. He looked directly at me. When you called my office, I knew something wasn't right. So I suspended every showing. I refused every offer. I contacted the title company. I asked for additional identity verification. And when none of it made sense, I hired an independent document examiner. He paused. I wasn't trying to sell your house. I was trying to stop someone from losing it. For nearly a week, I had blamed the only person who had actually protected me. Outside the office, Evan and I stood beside my truck. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he handed me a folded envelope. I was going to leave this after everything was finished. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not to a bank, not to a lawyer, to me. The first line read, Dad, I'm sorry you'll probably hate me after today. I folded it closed. I don't hate you. He looked up. I don't? No. I took a slow breath. But I don't trust you anymore. Those words hurt both of us more than shouting ever could. The next several months changed everything. I met with an attorney, not to punish my son, to protect what was left. The house stayed in my name. No one could sell it. No one could borrow against it. No one could sign anything for it except me. I also created a trust that made every future decision require 2 independent signatures. Not because I expected another betrayal, because trust should never replace protection. Evan sold his own home, his truck, his vacation property, everything he personally owned. He worked nights, weekends, accepted a second job. It took almost 3 years, but he paid every dollar he owed, not with my money, with his own. I respected that. It didn't erase what happened, but it mattered. As for Peter Lawson, a week after everything ended, I invited him to my house, the same house I thought he had tried to steal from me. We sat on the back porch drinking coffee. I apologized. I judged you before I knew the truth. He smiled. Most people would have. No. I shook my head. I should have listened instead of assuming. He looked across the backyard. I've worked in real estate for 26 years. I've seen people lie about money. I've seen families fight over inheritances. But the hardest transactions, he looked back at me, are the ones where love and desperation become impossible to separate. I never forgot that sentence. Today, When people ask why I never sold that house, I don't tell them it's because of its value, or because the market is better now. I tell them it's because a house is more than wood, brick, and land. It's where trust is built, and where it can be broken. I spent days believing a realtor was trying to steal my home. The truth was much harder to accept. The stranger was protecting it. The person I trusted most was trying to sell it. And the most painful lesson of my life wasn't that my house was almost taken. It was discovering that betrayal doesn't always come from the people you expect. Sometimes, it comes from the person who's been standing beside you the entire time.